Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Worst case scenario, if our planet falls apart, we can all go to Mars with the other man that we love and trust, Elon Musk.
All right. Check it out, Doc Mega. Yeah, but seriously, I run the country now. And America's going to be like one of my rockets, you know, they're super cool and super fun. But there's a slight chance it could blow up and everybody dies. Anyway, I'm Doc Mega. See you in the White House. USA, USA.
Well, Elon Musk is now the richest person on the planet.
More than half the satellites in space are owned and controlled by one man.
Well, he's a legitimate super genius. I mean, legitimate.
He says he's always voted for Democrats, but this year it will be different. He'll vote Republican.
There is a reason the U.S. government is so reliant on him.
Elon Musk is a scam artist, and he's done nothing.
Anything he does is fascinating to people.
Welcome to Elon Inc., Bloomberg's weekly podcast about Elon Musk. That was from Saturday Night Live, sending up Elon Musk's big week in politics. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. I'm your host, Max Chafkin, standing in for David Papadopoulos. It's hard to believe that the election was only a week ago. It feels, to me anyway, like Elon Musk has been vice president for years, which is only slightly a joke because Musk's role in this election has been staggering. Today, we're going to break that down in multiple ways. We are joined by our regulars, Sarah Frier, head of big tech coverage. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Dana Hull, our one and only Elon Musk reporter. Hey, Dana.
Elon belongs to all of us. Hey, hey.
And then later on, we'll be joined by a new guest, Tom Maloney, a member of Bloomberg's wealth team, who will come and talk to us about Musk's money. Before we get there, just to catch people up, if you weren't following this on Twitter or on the news or wherever else, Elon has basically been camped out in Mar-a-Lago for the week. He went there for the victory party. And Dana, I think he actually did leave briefly to go to Texas, but more or less, he's with Trump now, right? He's at the right hand of the soon-to-be president of the United States.
Yeah, I think he briefly went home to Austin, but then he went back. There's all these photographs of him like sitting around with Trump at the golf course and hanging out with the whole extended Trump clan. And he posted something about how like it was a great first day of the transition team. Like he is totally camped out there. And like talking to foreign leaders.
Sarah, what is going on with this aspect of kind of like the Elon Musk transition era or whatever, like these family photos? There was a family photo on election night, I believe, posted by Kai Trump, who's Trump's granddaughter, where like all the Trumps are there, but there's no Melania and no JD Vance. And then there's Elon Musk. Is Elon trying to what do we take away from this?
He's getting his money's worth. I mean, I think we've always known that Donald Trump is a bit of a favor-operated president, and Elon Musk just gave him the biggest favor of all, helping him score the presidency and giving him the full support of a media organization in X. And that is loyalty that Trump recognizes. And it is going to be very powerful. It's going to make that whole $44 billion Twitter acquisition worth it if he can maintain the relationship. So now it's really important that Musk, I guess, continue to show up for Trump and continue to stay on his side because there's a lot at stake. There's the government contracts. There's influence over future policy. There's influence over foreign policy. He may have a hand in picking the Senate majority leader. I mean, this is a key moment for Elon Musk and honestly for Donald Trump.
Elon's foreign policy, as far as I could tell, ahead of the election is sort of twofold. He's a peacenik, I guess. Like he has made comments about not wanting to have too many wars happen. And he's also very much in favor of maximizing the contracts that are given to his companies. Dana, were you surprised by this call with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, especially given Musk's all separate relationship with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia?
Not really. I mean, the sense that I got was that like Trump and Elon were probably just like hanging out and world leaders were calling. And like, so Trump put them on speaker and sort of let them know that Elon was there in the room. That could be wrong, but that's my assumption. And no, I think it's like very, very normal. Elon is like a transnational actor, right? He has relationships with foreign governments on his own, independent of our State Department. And he talks to foreign leaders all the time. So like these are people that Musk also knows. I think it's just it's unprecedented for government to sort of operate this way. I mean, we've never had a corporate CEO or a billionaire like literally right there, like side by side with the president-elect, helping to shape the transition team and like taking all these calls with foreign leaders in such a stark way before. So that's what's really striking. But it doesn't surprise me that Trump patched Elon in or that Elon is doing this.
Yeah, I believe we've also seen reports of calls with the leader of Turkey, as well as, I think, Dana, you sent me a news story this morning about Serbia, right? So so kind of a Near East portfolio, I guess, for now. Sarah, you mentioned also domestic politics. Elon sort of created a poll, I guess, to see who should be the Senate Majority Leader.
We're talking about a man who sees no boundaries between his companies. He mix and matches talent where he needs it to go, whether that's at SpaceX or Boring or X. He has certain people that he really trusts and certain people who are his allies and certain people who are his enemies. And he doesn't really see the silos of like, this is the team for Boring Company, so I'm cannibalizing that if I take them to Neuralink. Whatever thing is on fire, he turns his attention to. And so this is a moment for him to just go into launch mode, really, with the U.S. government.
Okay, so in the next couple of months, there's going to be this jockeying among all these people who want to have influence in the White House. And I feel like we're maybe already seeing a little bit of that jockeying. Howard Lutnick went on CNN and he described Musk's role in the new administration in what I would say are kind of narrow terms. He said, "Oh, he's going to write some software and then give us that software. He's not going to be part of the government. He's not going to be making decisions." What do you make of that? Like, and do you think, is that how Elon understands it? Is that actually what he's going to do? What's happening right now?
Also, it just is so imagine you could just write software and give it to the government and say, here you go, now your government's fixed. Like, that's just not how the government works. And it's not how Elon works. What I imagine might happen is, we've talked about this before, but the Department of Government Efficiency, the Doge leadership type of job that Trump is thinking of giving Musk, would really allow him to be in charge of slash and burn the way he was at X. I imagine him going into these agencies and saying, who are your most productive people? Who can you afford to lose? Send me a list of your accomplishments this week and every week. How many lines of code have you written? Like that sort of thing that he did at X, and replicating it for the U.S. government to the extent that the law allows him to.
I think one question I have is just about the ethics of it all. Like today, John Paulson, who a lot of people had been floating to be Treasury Secretary, basically came out and he said, like, I'm ecstatic that Trump is in office, but my complex financial obligations would prevent me from holding an official position in President Trump's administration at this time. So Paulson is basically a no for Treasury Secretary. So
I love that. Imagine having such complex financial arrangements.
No one has more complex financial arrangements than Elon Musk. He runs 6 companies. SpaceX is an enormous government contractor. Tesla is a huge beneficiary of the Inflation Reduction Act. So, like, that's my big question. Like, is this Doge thing just an advisory role that allows him to keep all of his companies? And in that sense, if it's only advisory, like, what is the actual remit? Or does he actually have, like, a job in the government? And in which case, does he have to abide by ethical rules, or are those ethical rules about to go out the window?
I mean, my take is that he's definitely not going to join the administration. I feel like Trump has said it. Lutnick said it the other day. Trump has said repeatedly on the stump during the campaign, like, he doesn't have enough time to do this. And I think you're right, Dana. Like, it's not just because it would be complicated in the John Paulson sense, although who knows what's behind that complication. It's that Elon Musk doesn't want to, right? The whole point, and I think he's made this clear, of like joining the administration or taking on a advisory role is so it can help his companies. It's not like he doesn't want to give that. That's the whole point of this is my reading. But I do think it makes you wonder, how long could this last? And like, should we already be on like, Elon Musk Trump feud watch?
I think you're going to see some real tests of Musk's power this week, right? Like, who is the Senate Majority Leader going to be? Like, Musk has thrown his weight behind Scott, who's like not particularly popular among the Senate. So like, is the non-MAGA wing of the Republican Party going to try to be like a check and balance to that? And similarly, like Elise Stefanik, right? Like Musk was saying, oh, she's great, but she should really stay in the House. But she's not staying in the House. Like, she's just been nominated to be the delegate to the UN. So like, Musk isn't getting everything that he wants, even though he's being very public about what he wants. And so it'll just be interesting to see, like, behind the scenes within the Republican Party, like what efforts are made to kind of be a check on what seems to be his unbridled power right now.
It would be hard if you're a politician and you have to be feeling the whiplash of Trump's leadership already, right? He changes his mind based on who he talked to last. He tweets about it or posts about it, and then the whole government has to shift. To be loyal to something like that and then simultaneously be loyal to Elon Musk, who has similar behavioral characteristics of being very strong-minded about what he thinks is the best way to do things, that seems very difficult. And also the idea that Musk is very much in the spotlight, on stage, pictured with Trump. For how long is Trump going to be able to cede the spotlight to Elon Musk?
Okay, so huge week for Elon in politics, and there's going to be lots for us to talk about in the weeks to come, but it was also a huge week for Elon's bank account. And to break that down, we have the perfect guest, Tom Maloney, a member of Bloomberg's wealth team, who has been crunching the numbers on Elon Musk's wealth and is coming to talk about it. Tom, thanks for being on Elon Inc.
Thanks, Max.
Tom, how wealthy is Elon Musk?
He's worth more than $330 billion. So he's very near his wealthiest ever, which was about $340 billion. About 2/3 of that comes from Tesla stock and options. And then a big chunk of that comes from SpaceX. That's valued about $210 billion. He owns 42% of that. Then XAI, Twitter, Neuralink, Boring Company, kind of round the rest of that out.
So were you on the wealth team, were you guys like preparing for what happened last week? I mean, if people don't know, the Tesla stock went up like crazy. I think it was around 40% as of yesterday, I believe, as of Monday. And that sent Musk's wealth up, I don't know, from the election night to now, what's the gain been?
More than $70 billion. And just to put that in context, $70 billion is the net worth of Charles Koch, who's the 22nd richest person on the planet. And Musk has added that in a week.
Yeah, I found this really interesting just because, like, before the election, and, we've been telling this story over several years of all the problems at Twitter. He's possibly lost, I don't know, $20 or $30 billion, Sarah, right, on the acquisition of Twitter. But like, it's like he made it all back in 3 days.
It's wild. And this is what we were talking about when he acquired Twitter, right? Like this is really not about the money now, right? If you look at Twitter and you look at what it makes and what it does and how big it is and how it's shrinking, there's no way that's worth $44 billion. And that's exactly what financial analysts look at it as. But, our colleague Kurt Wagner had a column this week. $44 billion looks cheap if you're Elon Musk and you have as much money as he does to gain this level of influence over the U.S. government and the future of policy.
Yeah, I think we need to start. I mean, and I feel like if you've been listening to this podcast for a year, you are not going to be surprised. But like, there aren't like, 6 companies, and I guess now a 7th company with America Pac. There's like one Elon Musk conglomerate. And Twitter is the media arm of the Elon Musk conglomerate. Right, Dana?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. And like, we need to stop kind of thinking of it as like this failing business that has alienated advertisers and is losing users left and right. Like it is serving its purpose as a megaphone for Musk, his politics, for now the Trump administration. I mean, for every, journalist and epidemiologist and climate scientist who's like leaving X to go join Blue Sky, a lot of Republicans are now using it because it really is like the media arm of the Republican Party. And it's kind of become what Truth Social set out to be a while ago. And so, yeah, I think your framing is totally right, Max. This is the media wing of Elon Inc.
Tom, have you started thinking about, or is it worth starting to think about an exit for Twitter? And when you guys are thinking about valuation of Twitter, like how much is it worth? If Tesla's valuation goes up 40% just based on kind of like the magic of having President-elect Donald Trump, like what does that do to Twitter's valuation? How does that affect his net worth?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. Could he turn it into a meme stock? I mean, you look at Trump Media and Technology, right? It's got Truth Social, it made like $1 million last quarter. It's financially, it's terrible. And yet it's valued at something like $7 or $8 billion. So Twitter, by that comparison, should be worth multiple times of that.
One of the things that Elon said right before the election, and he reiterated it in a tweet this morning, was the idea that America PAC is going to continue putting money into politics. And I think part of why he's doing that is because it's a way to, create some leverage over what's happening in the White House right now. Tom, like, can he just spend a couple $100 million every couple of years without incident? Or like at what point do those liquidity problems that we've talked about with Elon Musk, the fact that like most of his net worth is in Tesla stock and options, when does that start to become a problem? Like,
I think a couple of $100 million is pretty easy for him to come up with. I mean, he ran into problems when he bought Twitter, and that's when he had to sell a bunch of Tesla shares. There were margin calls, there were problems with his margin loan. That was, $44 billion, and that was a big purchase, right? And that was a struggle for him. But coming up with $500 million a year at this point, that's pretty straightforward. We don't know much about his liquidity at this point. His margin loan with Tesla stock has come down a lot. They limited that to $3.5 billion after the Twitter fiasco. He could probably borrow against SpaceX. That's a private company, so it's a little bit trickier in terms of liquidity, but for private companies, it's probably the most liquid one in the world, or at least right up there. So he has ways of raising money, and certainly coming up with that sort of money, I think is very easy for him.
How do you think about what SpaceX is worth and how much what this stuff that we've heard about and talked about, and that Dana and I on the Citizen Elon podcast, which is all about the election, that we've talked about, like how do you figure out like how much that's going to be worth to Elon?
I mean, from a perspective of valuation, we only care about what it's worth now. But if you're asking what is going to drive his wealth in the future, I mean, you got to think SpaceX and XAI is where the most potential is, especially with Tesla, what it's worth versus, what its revenue is and how many cars it's selling. It's hard to imagine the trajectory it's on now kind of continuing indefinitely. And it's come down a lot in the past. I mean, Musk is the only person in the world who's lost more than $200 billion at some point as well. So he's always had a volatile fortune, and that's because of Tesla. SpaceX, though, so that's a company that has a huge amount of potential, and XAI, even if that was worth as much as OpenAI, then that would boost his fortune by multiples. He would add another $100 billion or something to his fortune.
Did SpaceX's value also go up overnight when Trump got elected?
No, well, we don't. We look at when it was last valued. So that was back in June when it did a fundraising at $210 billion. Do I think it's worth that now? No, I think it's probably worth substantially
But in terms
more.
of the Bloomberg model, which is what you're citing,
exactly,
the big appreciation is just in his Tesla shares, I'm guessing.
Most of it. Yeah, he's added about the $70 billion that he's added in the last week comes from his Tesla shares. This year he's added about $100 billion, and I think the rest of that comes from XAI and SpaceX.
Sarah, just stepping back a minute from Elon Musk and just looking at the world of Silicon Valley, how do you think this is going to be processed by like the other, wannabe oligarchs in the tech industry? The people who, there are a lot of people who really look up to Elon. Like, are people just seeing this as like, oh my God, his bet paid off. Like now I need to somehow either get close to Trump or get into politics? Or like, how is this playing kind of in the wider world of Silicon Valley?
I think there's sort of two camps that I see. There's the people who are now going very silent because they don't want to ruffle Elon's feathers or Trump's feathers or, try to make any waves, and they want to stay in good graces just for being technologists. And then there are people that are clearly trying to angle to think about like how Elon got what he got. And I'm sure that we'll see a lot more trying to replicate that success for their businesses. I do think that there might be a backlash to all of this culturally. Like, I think that there was already, and I think you and I were talking about this yesterday, Max, like the era of like tech optimism about growth and designing the future. And we're just seeing a lot of like cultural backlash to the idea of Musk so close to the government and like what that might mean for all of us. And then there are people that hope that his proximity to Trump means that Trump's climate policies won't be as much of a disaster.
I love the theory that like Musk isn't actually right-wing MAGA. He's just like pretending to be right-wing MAGA so he can sort of Trojan horse it and like get into the government and then convince Musk that he's Trojan horsing it and is going to convince Trump that electric vehicles are great, windmills aren't so bad, solar energy is the future. And I mean, if that came to pass, that would be remarkable. I don't believe in that theory personally, but that is a theory.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's totally runs counter to almost everything he said and Trump said over the last year.
Right.
All right, Dana, we are going to let you go and get back to the important business of reporting on the crazy things that are happening. I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here.
Take care.
So Sarah brought up this idea of a techlash, and I think we actually got a preview this week, and we're going to talk about it for our semi-regular feud segment, Feud of the Week. And this one stars cultural icon Olivia Rodrigo against, I guess, guys who want to go to space. Let's give a listen.
The biggest red flag, okay, this is a very oddly specific question that I ask guys on first dates. I always ask them if they think that they would want to go to space. And if they say yes, I don't date them. I just think if you want to go to space, you're a little too full of yourself, because I think it's just weird.
Sarah, she's talking about Elon Musk, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that this is a theme I've also seen in it's really not just Elon Musk. It's this idea of like men who are so disconnected from human connection and how to actually develop human connection. They're so deeply invested in this Musk world and like the manosphere. I've seen other kind of techlash cultural tweets like this and memes where people are like, oh, if you suggest that I use ChatGPT to solve a problem on the first date, like you're not going to get a second date.
I think this is really bad for Elon Musk. I mean, I know this is not, obviously, this isn't a robotaxi, crashing or something. This isn't a rocket failing to launch, but this seems like the canary in the coal mine that could portend what Sarah is talking about, Tom, a monumental techlash, a techlash where basically all the cool people decide that like Elon Musk and anybody like him doesn't belong in their community. I mean, what do you make of this? How are you incorporating this into the Bloomberg billionaires model?
I feel like Musk has always wanted to be cool, but has always been on the outside, and this is just kind of more of the same, right? So is this really going to change his trajectory in any way? I don't think so. I mean, it's just one more blow and he's going to just continue with his quest to go to space, and hopefully he'll meet more like-minded people on Mars.
So Sarah, again, I don't want to make too much of this, but in a more serious sense, like, do you think that this could like slow things down culturally? I mean, I think we probably need to get ready for some version of, Resistance 2.0 and maybe a resistance that's more directed at tech guys than the last one was.
I mean, just look at the reasons that people voted for Trump on a macro scale, like people are unsatisfied with how expensive everything is, how difficult life is, how much childcare costs. When people are dissatisfied with the state of their lives and their spending power and their futures, they vote for the alternative. And in a moment like that, saying, well, let's just go to space, it's like, well, let's just forget about fixing the stuff that is broken on Earth and stop trying to do anything about it, and instead invest in some future that is very expensive and who knows if it'll work.
Any final words, Tom?
No, but I got to say, I've always kind of wanted to go to space, so I feel a little bit hurt by Rodrigo's comments.
Sarah, what do you think? Is going to space a red flag?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think so. I'm a tech reporter, right? Like, I think innovation is cool, but I also think that there are other problems that people on Earth probably want to be solved first, or in conjunction with that.
Let's leave it there. We'll be paying attention to those problems in the weeks that come. Sarah, Tom, thanks for being on Elon Inc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Stacey Wong. Anna Mazarakis is our editor, and Rehan Harmansi, our senior editor. The idea for this show also came from Rehan. Blake Maples handles engineering, and Emma Sanchez fact-checks. Our supervising producer is Magnus Henriksen. The Elon Inc. theme is written and performed by Taka Yasuzawa and Alex Sigillera. Brendan Francis Newnham is our executive producer, and Sage Bauman is the head of Bloomberg Podcasts. A big thanks to our supporters, Joel Weber and Brad Stone. I'm Max Chafkin. If you have a minute, rate and review our show. It'll help other listeners find us, and we will see you next week.